The Mary Tyler Moore Show is an American television sitcom created by James L. Brooks and Alan Burns and starring actress and namesake Mary Tyler Moore. The show originally aired on CBS from 1970 to 1977. Moore portrayed Mary Richards, an unmarried, independent woman focused on her career as associate producer of a news show at the fictional local station WJM in Minneapolis. Ed Asner co-starred as Mary's boss Lou Grant, alongside Gavin MacLeod, Ted Knight, Georgia Engel, and Betty White, with Valerie Harper as friend and neighbor Rhoda Morgenstern, and Cloris Leachman as friend Phyllis Lindstrom. The Mary Tyler Moore Show proved to be a groundbreaking series in the era of second-wave feminism, portraying a central female character who was neither married nor dependent on a man was a rarity on American television in the 1970s. The show has been celebrated for its complex, relatable characters and storylines. The Mary Tyler Moore Show received consistent praise from critics and high ratings during its original run and earned 29 Primetime Emmy Awards, including Outstanding Comedy Series 3 years in a row. Moore received the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series 3 times. The series also launched 3 spin-offs, Rhoda, Phyllis, and Lou Grant. In 2013, the Writers Guild of America ranked The Mary Tyler Moore Show number 6 on its list of the 101 best-written TV series of all time. Early life. Moore was born on December 29, 1936, in the Brooklyn Heights neighborhood in Brooklyn, New York City, New York, to Marjorie and George Tyler Moore. He was a clerk. Her Irish Catholic family lived in Brooklyn's Flatbush neighborhood. The Moores later lived in a rented apartment at 144 to 1630 Fifth Avenue in Flushing, Queens, New York City. Moore was the oldest of 3 children, with a younger brother John and a younger sister Elizabeth. Moore's paternal great-grandfather, Confederate Lieutenant Colonel Lewis Tilghman Moore, owned the house which is now the Stonewall Jackson's Headquarters Museum in Winchester, Virginia. When Moore was 8 years old, the family relocated to Los Angeles, California at the recommendation of her uncle, an employee of MCA. She was raised Catholic, attended St. Rose of Lima Parochial School in Brooklyn until the 3rd grade. In Los Angeles, Moore attended St. Ambrose School and Immaculate Heart High School in the Los Feliz neighborhood of the city. Moore's sister Elizabeth died at age 21 from a combination of painkillers and alcohol. Her brother died at the age of 47 from kidney cancer. Career. Television. Early appearances. I. The Dick Van Dyke Show / I. None. I. The Mary Tyler Moore Show / I. None. Later projects. Theater. Moore appeared in several Broadway plays. She was the star of a new musical version of Breakfast at Tiffany's in December 1966, but the show, titled Holly Golightly, was a flop that closed in previews before opening on Broadway. In reviews of performances in Philadelphia and Boston, critics murdered the play in which Moore claimed to be singing with bronchial pneumonia. She starred in Whose Life Is It Anyway with James Naughton, which opened on Broadway at the Royale Theatre on February 24, 1980, and ran for 96 performances, and in Sweet Sue, which opened at the Music Box Theatre on January 8, 1987, later transferred to the Royale Theatre, and ran for 164 performances. During the 1980s, Moore and her production company produced 5 plays: Noises Off, The Octet Bridge Club, Joe Egg, Benefactors, and Safe Sex. Moore appeared in previews of the Neil Simon play Rose's Dilemma at the Off-Broadway Manhattan Theatre Club in December 2003 but quit the production after receiving a critical letter from Simon instructing her to learn your lines or get out of my play. Moore had been using an earpiece on stage to feed her lines to the repeatedly rewritten play. Films. Moore made her film debut in a bit as a nurse in the Jack Lemmon comedy Operation Mad Ball. Her first speaking part came in X-15. Following her success on The Dick Van Dyke Show, she appeared in a string of films in the late 1960s, including Thoroughly Modern Millie, as a would-be actress in 1920s New York who is taken under the wing of Julie Andrews' title character, and 2 films released in 1968, What's So Bad About Feeling Good? With George Peppard, and Don't Just Stand There with Robert Wagner. She starred opposite Elvis Presley as a nun in Change of Habit. Moore's future television castmate Ed Asner appeared in the film as a police officer. Moore returned to the big screen in the coming-of-age drama Ordinary People. She received an Oscar nomination for her portrayal of a grieving mother trying to cope with the drowning death of a son and the suicide attempt of another son. Moore appeared in only 2 more films during the next 15 years, 6 Weeks and Just Between Friends. She appeared in the independent hit Flirting with Disaster. Moore was in the television movie Run a Crooked Mile and starred in several television movies including First, You Cry, which brought her an Emmy nomination for portraying NBC correspondent Betty Rollins' struggle with breast cancer. Her later TV movies included the medical drama Heart Sounds with James Garner, which brought her another Emmy nomination, Finnegan Begin Again with Robert Preston, which earned her a Cable ACE Award nomination, the 1988 miniseries Lincoln, which brought her another Emmy nod for playing Mary Todd Lincoln, and Stolen Babies, for which she won an Emmy Award for Outstanding Supporting Actress in 1993. Later she reunited with former CO stars in Mary and Rhoda with Valerie Harper, and The Gin Game, with Dick Van Dyke. Moore starred in Like Mother, Like Son, playing convicted murderer Santa Kimes. Memoirs. Moore wrote 2 memoirs. In the first, After All, published in 1995, she acknowledged being a recovering alcoholic, while in Growing Up Again, Life, Loves, and Oh Yeah, Diabetes, she focuses on living with type 1 diabetes. MTM Enterprises. In 1969, Moore and her husband Grant Tinker founded MTM Enterprises, Inc., which produced The Mary Tyler Moore Show and other successful television shows and films. It also included a record label, MTM Records. MTM Enterprises produced American sitcoms and drama television series such as Rhoda, Lou Grant and Phyllis, The Bob Newhart Show, The Texas Wheelers, The Bob Crane Show, 3 for the Road, The Tony Randall Show, WKRP in Cincinnati, The White Shadow, Friends and Lovers, Saint Elsewhere, Newhart, and Hill Street Blues, and was later sold to Television South, an ITV franchise holder in 1988. The MTM logo resembles the Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer logo, but includes a cat named Mimsy instead of a lion. Currently, the shows of MTM Enterprises are distributed by 20th Century Fox, which is owned by the Walt Disney Company. Personal life. At age 18 in 1955, Moore married 28-year-old salesman Richard Meeker, and within 6 weeks she was pregnant with her only child, Richard Carlton Meeker Jr. Meeker and Moore divorced in 1962. Later that year, Moore married Grant Tinker, a CBS executive and later chairman of NBC, and in 1969 they formed the television production company MTM Enterprises, which created and produced the company's first television series, The Mary Tyler Moore Show. Moore and Tinker announced their separation in 1979 and divorced 2 years later. In the early 1980s, Moore dated Steve Martin and Warren Beatty. On October 14, 1980, at the age of 24, Moore's son Richard died of an accidental gunshot to the head while handling a small .410 shotgun. The model was later taken off the market because of its hair trigger. 3.5 weeks earlier, Ordinary People had been released where she played a mother who was grieving over the accidental death of her son. Moore married cardiologist Robert Levine on November 23, 1983, at the Pierre Hotel in New York City. They met when he treated Moore's mother in New York City on a weekend house call, after Moore and her mother returned from a visit to the Vatican where they had a personal audience with Pope John Paul II. Moore and Levine remained married for 34 years until her death in 2017. Health issues and death. Moore was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in 1969. In 2011, she had surgery to remove a meningioma, a benign brain tumor. In 2014, friends reported that Moore had heart and kidney problems and was nearly blind from complications related to diabetes. Moore died at the age of 80 on January 25, 2017, at Greenwich Hospital in Greenwich, Connecticut, from cardiopulmonary arrest complicated by pneumonia after having been placed on a ventilator the week before. She was interred in Oak Lawn Cemetery in Fairfield, Connecticut in a private ceremony. Philanthropy. In addition to her acting work, Moore was the international chairperson of JDRF. In this role, she used her celebrity status to help raise funds in awareness of diabetes mellitus type 1. In 2007, in honor of Moore's dedication to the foundation, JDRF created the Forevermore Research Initiative, which will support JDRF's academic research and development and JDRF's clinical development program. The program works on translating basic research advances into new treatments and technologies for those living with type 1 diabetes. Moore advocated for animal rights for years and supported charities like the ASPCA and Farm Sanctuary. She helped raise awareness about factory farming methods and promoted more compassionate treatment of farm animals. Moore appeared as herself in 1996 on an episode of the Ellen DeGeneres sitcom Ellen. The storyline of the episode includes Moore honoring Ellen for trying to save a 65-year-old lobster from being eaten at a seafood restaurant. She was also a co-founder of Broadway Barks, an annual animal adopt-a-thon held in New York City. Moore and friend Bernadette Peters worked to make it a no-kill city and to encourage adopting animals from shelters. In honor of her father, George Tyler Moore, a lifelong American Civil War enthusiast, in 1995 Moore donated funds to acquire an historic structure in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, for Shepherd College to be used as a center for Civil War studies. The center, named the George Tyler Moore Center for the Study of the Civil War, is housed in the historic Conrad Schindler House, which is named in honor of her great-great-great-grandfather, who owned the structure from 1815 to 1852. Moore also contributed to the renovation of a historic house in Winchester, Virginia that had been used as headquarters by Confederate Major General Thomas J. Stonewall Jackson during his Shenandoah Valley campaign in 1861–62. The house, now known as the Stonewall Jackson's Headquarters Museum, had been owned by Moore's great-grandfather, Lieutenant Colonel Lewis Tilghman Moore, commander of the 4th Virginia Infantry in Jackson's Stonewall Brigade. Politics. During the 1960s and 1970s, Moore had a reputation as a liberal or moderate, although she endorsed President Richard Nixon for re-election in 1972. She endorsed President Jimmy Carter for re-election in a 1980 campaign television ad. In 2011, her friend and former CO star Ed Asner said during an interview on The O'Reilly Factor that Moore has become much more conservative of late. Bill O'Reilly, host of that program, stated that Moore had been a viewer of his show and that her political views had leaned conservative in recent years. In a Parade magazine article from March 22, 2009, Moore identified herself as a libertarian centrist who watched Fox News. She stated, "When one looks at what's happened to television, there are so few shows that interest me. I do watch a lot of Fox News. I like Charles Krauthammer and Bill O'Reilly. If McCain had asked me to campaign for him, I would have." In an interview for the 2013 PBS series Pioneers of Television, Moore said that she was recruited to join the feminist movement of the 1970s by Gloria Steinem but did not agree with Steinem's views. Moore said she believed that women have an important role in raising children and that she did not believe in Steinem's view that women owe it to themselves to have a career.